everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief contributor and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. If you're listening to this on any of our audio downloads, please give us a 5-star rating and download more episodes. I'm very thrilled to welcome this guest today. For the last 3 decades, he's worked in the communications and marketing industry for film, television, and tourism. He started his career at the Walt Disney Company and then also with Rubenstein PR. And he also worked at Procter Gamble Productions as part of the As the World Turns and Guiding Light press team. He's also the host of one of my favorite virtual talk shows, The Locker Room. And as of today, it has over 23,100 YouTube subscribers. Please help me welcome Alan Locher to the podcast.
Hey, Jacob. Thank you so much for having me.
Alan, it is a privilege to have you. Thank you so much for taking time in your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
All righty. So when did you get interested in media and how did that passion evolve into start to pursue a career in the entertainment industry?
I think growing up watching television, growing up watching As the World Turns and Guiding Light, becoming a fan of those shows, meeting the cast of those shows when I was a fan of the show, of both shows, really led me down that path. And, initially I was going to college for business and, say things out loud is my motto, because a woman, while I was in college managing a health club, part-time, going to college, making money on the side, she asked me, what did I want to do with my career? And I said I was going to school for business, but I ultimately would have loved to have been in the entertainment industry. And someone overheard that conversation, and she worked for ABC Television. And the next thing I know, I was a page at ABC Television.
That's amazing. And I'm glad you brought up ABC Television because it was I got to say, that's one of my dream companies. I'm going to say it out loud. Well, the Walt Disney Company is one of my dream companies to work for. If I had the opportunity and privilege, it would be they're one of my dream companies. So I'm going to put that out there. So
I'm glad you said it out. I'm glad you said it out loud. I didn't have a dream company. I definitely wanted to be in the entertainment industry. I didn't know what road that was. And then ultimately, ABC and the Walt Disney Company merged, and, I ended up working for the Walt Disney Company.
And awesome. So that was an 8-year tenure. And how did that experience lay the groundwork to mark your presence in the industry?
Great question. Like I said, I really didn't know what what path in entertainment I would take. When I was a page at ABC, I did internship after internship after internship, whatever opportunity came up. And one of those internships was working for Regis and Kathy Lee on their local morning show, which then became a syndicated show through Disney. And then when I got that job, so I was hired right out of college to work for Live with Regis and Kathy Lee, spent about 6 months working for them while they were syndicated, and an opening in the movie division of the Walt Disney Company opened up. And it was in the marketing department in promotions and publicity. And that's really where I learned the ins and outs of PR, which really, drove the path forward from that moment. It's interesting because right out of college, I applied for a job at As the World Turns and Guiding Light, but I didn't know that public relations would be that path, because at that time I had studied communications, but I didn't really have any, understanding of the PR role at that time. And basically 10 years after applying the first time, I applied a second time, and that's how I ended up there.
That's incredible. I got to say this because the thing is, it's amazing that you would never know. 1 minute you're working, you were with Regis and Kathy Lee, one of the shows that guided me to this podcast decision and inspired me to go into the media industry. So, God, rest in peace to the great Regis Philbin, and always thinking about Kathy Lee. And then jumping into the movies, and then all of a sudden you go back to your two favorite soaps, and now not just not before while you were a fan, now you're working on a public relations team for both those shows. So, what were some of the memories that what were some of your favorite memories working on these shows as a publicist?
Well, there's a lot. So on Guiding Light, the characters that Robert Newman and Kim Zimmer played, Reva and Josh, got married. They were one of the most popular couples on Guiding Light, and they got married for the third time. And I pitched an idea to the Learning Channel, which used to have a show called A Wedding Story. And A Wedding Story was a 30-minute show that basically featured real life couples embarking on their wedding journey. And I pitched the idea of A Wedding Story doing something for Reva and Josh's third wedding. And they, for the first time, did a fictional couple on their show and gave us basically a 30-minute episode. And we did it as if Reva and Josh were real. So like we went to Central Park to recreate some interviews where they were talking to the couple about their journey over the last, few decades. And that was really quite special and something I'm proud of. Another, As the World Turns, our executive producer, Chris Goutman, was targeting younger viewers and created a bus tour that took 3 of our young actors across the country to 10 different college campuses. Wow. So we literally took the show on the road where we cast local students to participate in the show. Then, the first part of the PR plan was we were casting the local students. So that was one element. We came back a week later, filmed on campus. Then those shows aired. So it all provided a PR opportunity at each juncture. And then when the tour was over, I had the idea to create a soap star screen test that we did on the CBS Early Show, where we picked 5 of those students that were cast. They flew to New York. They did a live screen test on the morning show with an actor from As the World Turns. And then they won, people voted online. So it was really like a first reality show before American Idol and that type of thing, where people voted and those college students won a week role on As the World Turns. And then we did the same thing for Guiding Light.
That's pretty cool, because the thing is, not just threw them into a fire, because some of the actors on both As the World Turns and Guiding Light are legendary. And to have them do a live audition on the early show, that's you threw them to the fire.
That's a pretty brave thing to be willing to do. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they were, they had a short scene and they literally, and each day we had a different actor. So it was a great publicity, opportunity for us. Every day, the early show was featuring As the World Turns. And then when we did it for Guiding Light. So it was pretty great, because it was very difficult going from the Walt Disney Company, picking up the telephone and saying, "Hi, it's Alan Locher from the Walt Disney Company," and then calling from As the World Turns and Guiding Light, because those shows have been on the air, for 50, 60, 70 years at the time. And so mainstream media wasn't always generous in covering daytime. Now that there's 4 shows on the air, you see mainstream covering them a little more frequently than they ever did when there were 10 and 11 shows on the air.
I gotta say this because that brings me to a thing because I was on Reddit this morning and they were looking at one of the things from General Hospital and they said what would be the best way for mainstream to get mainstream coverage. And one of the things I recommended was Susan Lucci reprising Erica Kane for an episode or arc.
That would be great.
And then also, unfortunately, like as you mentioned, there the only 4 shows, and then if you count the gate in 2025, it'll be back up to 5 the gates. So, what went through your mind when you heard about Guiding Lights cancellation, As the World Turns, and then followed by the 1-2 punch of All My Children leaving ABC Airways and One Life to Live, following about that?
I mean, it's the end of an era. You know, I have said this in multiple interviews. I've said it on my show. I feel like if the streaming services had been further along in figuring out their business models, one of those 4 shows, or maybe 2 of those 4 shows, might still be around on a streaming platform. But it was a little too early to take As the World Turns, Guiding Light, All My Children, or One Life to Live. I mean, they did try with All My Children on Prospect Park, but it just, I think, was a little early in the evolution of the streaming platform for them to figure it out.
I agree completely. My mom was very sad when both All My Children, One Life to Live went off the air. She watched that for ages.
Many people. I mean, you know, it's a unique medium because these characters are in people's living rooms for decades, 5 days a week. They sometimes see these characters more than they see actual family members.
Absolutely. So I wanted to put a pin in our soap opera talk because I want to talk to you about the challenges that you've faced staying in this industry and how you overcome those obstacles.
In the entertainment industry?
That's correct, yes.
It's still a challenge. I mean, I'm looking for work today. It's still a challenge. I don't really have the answer. You have to, I think you need to stay, always educate yourself. I watch a lot of the shows. I do read a lot of industry publications as well to keep up to date. But so much has changed and things change so quickly these days that it's sometimes hard to stay on top. And, sometimes you might hear that a company's hiring and then the next day you just hear of, 100 layoffs at that entertainment company. So staying in the industry has not been as easy as I would have liked. And then came along the locker room.
I was going to say this because here's the thing. The locker room has been one of the best ways that I discovered you. And I got to say this, it's one of my favorite shows. I love seeing all your lives, going back to your live streams. And I'll talk about some of my favorite episodes later. Okay. But I would love to learn the origin story of the locker room.
So it's not, when the pandemic hit, my last day at work was March 20th of 2020. And in the interim 2 weeks, I was home. I didn't start looking for a job immediately because none of us knew what was happening with the pandemic. I would go on social media, I would go on Instagram, and I would see everybody from A to Z, whether it was an actor or just someone I followed, but people were doing a lot of Instagram lives. And at the time, Instagram only allowed you to have one-on-one interviews. So you and another guest. So I sort of was just thinking, and then April 1st came around, which was the day before As the World Turns premiered. As the World Turns premiered on April 2nd, 1956. And I thought on April 1st, 2020, maybe I should reach out to some As the World Turns actors, some of my friends, and see if any of them would do an Instagram live with me. And the first person I called was Michael Park, who played Jack Snyder. And Michael was like, whatever you want to do, Alan, I'm in. And then he called back and said, if you use a streaming platform like StreamYard, and he did suggest StreamYard because he was in Dear Evan Hansen, and they had just done something online on a streaming platform. And basically, Michael suggested that. I did the research. It took 24 hours to connect StreamYard to YouTube. So I unfortunately couldn't do it on April 2nd like I wanted. So my first show was April 3rd, 2020, with 5 actors from As the World Turns, and I haven't stopped producing the show since.
It's amazing. Now, you do something that I rarely do, which is go live, because what is that feeling like when you have these live shows?
Luckily I came from live television. Like, I literally started on the morning show watching them, Regis and Kathy Lee, do that day in and day out for 3 years, basically. I think from 86 to 89. I was in that environment. And, when I launched, it wasn't, I don't think taping it ever crossed my mind. I don't know why. I know that, there have been people who have watched and suggested, because, doing it live, I also don't have a teleprompter. So I have a Word document up, and I might stutter through an opening or an introduction, and it's not polished necessarily in that way, but neither was Regis. I mean, Regis made errors all the time, which made it funny in some respect because he had a sense of humor, but what I started to notice early on was I was able to bring in the community of fans watching my show so that they felt a part of it while it was live. So if it was taped, they would never feel like they were a part of it. And I get to read a comment from Jacob that says, Susan Lucci is my favorite, or Susan Lucci, telling this story helped me come out of the closet, or, whatever these shows were telling. So I think that also helped build my audience, because they feel like they are sort of, I think, in the audience, the Regis and Kathy Lee members of the audience were there. I like doing it live. I mean, I have taped many shows when it just doesn't work out on someone's schedule. But it's been rare. I do enjoy the live element. And let me tell you, I mean, early on, especially in the pandemic, there were struggles because so many people were online, and, the audio would go out, and, that will make you sweat, or a guest, all of a sudden you and I would be talking and you disappear. So I just have to, go with the flow. But yeah, that's kind of what led to me doing it. And initially, Jacob, the guests, my intent, and I never had an intent of keeping it going. I was literally going to talk to my friends, the people I worked with on Guiding Light and As the World Turns. That's what I was going to do. And then when that audience started watching and commenting, they would write to me asking me to do other people that I was not as familiar with or didn't know. And when I reached out to Susan Lucci and she said yes, I figured, you know what? If Susan says yes, I can keep going. I'm just going to keep asking. And I kept asking people. And, now here we are at 520 episodes or something.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations. And I want to talk about some of my favorite episodes that you've done. I want to start out with one of the best episodes you ever did, in my opinion, was your tribute to the legendary Agnes Nixon, one of the greatest storytellers of all media. They would happen on March 31st. As of today, it has over 12,100 YouTube views. And you welcome a powerhouse panel. You had Agnes' son, Robert, and not to mention Susan Lucci, Erica Selzak, Darnell Williams, Debbie Morgan, and Peter Bergman.
That was, I read her book. Somebody gave me her book, Agnes's book, and I just was really quite blown away by her story and what the path she set out, on and the legacy she leaves behind. And I had gotten in touch with Agnes's daughter-in-law, and we sort of put it together from there.
It's still amazing because the thing is, I remember that line about Erica saying, Agnes Nixon changed my life. That gave me chills when I was watching it. And to hear all the stories about how Susan was only supposed to be like a pot stirrer, but however, that led to 41 years and one Emmy, and now and a Lifetime Emmy of entertaining people, to have people like fans today saying, we want her back on GH or make a cameo.
Absolutely. I mean, what these storytellers, it was just, I don't know the anniversary, but I think Sunday was the anniversary of the creation of soap operas by Erna Phillips this past Sunday. Erna Phillips started the soap genre. And then Agnes and Bill Bell, and they all came in and they really took it to the next level.
Absolutely. And speaking of Irma, I remember watching and saying that Agnes's father actually just wanted to set up a meeting with Irma to dissuade her, and Irma did the opposite.
Yes. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely. And speaking of Susan Lucci, I was one of the I watched the last 11 years of AMC. I snuck. My mom was not happy when I snuck around. However, I could not stop watching. Between my three favorites were always Susan, of course, but also Eden, Regal, Bionica, and Alicia Minshew, the second Kendall. And when you brought those three women back together on July 21st, 2021, I was so happy about that. And the Kane Women Reunion, as of today, has 19,100 YouTube views.
Wow. Yeah, they were fun. I enjoyed having the three together. They were great. Because I had met Susan many times over the years, but I didn't know her well, because she was a frequent guest on Regis's show. But I had not met Eden or Alicia, and they were fabulous guests.
And speaking of fabulous guests, you also have a dynamic duo who are currently on opposite ends on Port Charles. I'm talking about on General Hospital. I'm talking about Laura Wright and Cynthia Watros.
That's true.
When they were both up for the Outstanding Lead Actress Emmy in 2022.
Love those ladies. I was very lucky to work with both of them on Guiding Light.
You could tell that their friendship was real, even though they could claw at each other with verbal warfares. I got to say this, and like how fans always pull them against them. I'm so impressed with their professionalism and how they're able to exit the character.
They are incredible actresses. Incredible.
And two of my favorites, along with Maura West.
Yes. Yes. And Cynthia and Maura went to the same college.
I did not know that.
They did, in Boston.
Oh, wow.
They were taught very well.
Absolutely. That trio is like basically, along with Rebecca Herbst, is Liz, Jane Elliott's Tracy, and Jeannie Francis' Laura, and Nancy LeGrand's Alexis. Hold up, GH.
Yeah, they have a talented crew over there.
Absolutely. And speaking of GH, you also welcome back band Hannes's return and spoke with him recently to talk about his return to daytime.
I did. That was a lot of fun getting to catch up with Van. I think fans are going to enjoy him. He was really popular on As the World Turns.
And he's now stepping into the role of Bobby Spencer's son, Lucas, if I remember correctly.
Dr. Lucas Jones.
Oh, nice. This is going to be fun. So, and he
So
said
do you still
that,
watch? Do you watch General Hospital?
Off and on, off and on.
Very nice.
So that's how I know some of the people and the players. And then
would you watch All My Children if it came to Lifetime?
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. I was like, I've been saying, please. I'm so excited when I heard about the news of Lifetime, the Lifetime movies, and I'm like, please get Susan, please get Julia Bart, please get Darnell and Debbie, and please somehow get any remaining actor or actress there, please. Alrighty, so. However, outside the world of soap, you've also welcomed a plethora of other people, but one person came to me was Disney animation legend Andrea Steja. It happened on my mom's birthday this year, and this man is responsible for designing some of the greatest Disney villains of all time: the Horn King, Vanessa, Jafar, Scar, and also some of the heroes as well, like King Triton, Roger Rabbit, and of course, Adult Hercules. And
I just unblurred my screen so you can see my Scar behind me.
Wow. Guys, if you're listening to this in the audio, Alan has a photo hand drawn by Andres as Scar. Seriously, that is what is insane.
Yeah, working at Disney was really something. I didn't necessarily grow up as someone who was in love with Disney animation. And I think that's probably because my parents were immigrants from Holland. So like they didn't grow up here on those films. But, I was really blessed to get the job at Disney at the beginning of that Disney Renaissance in animation. I mean, the first, I worked on Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Toy Story, Pocahontas. Pretty incredible time for me.
And I got to say this, all of them played a role in my childhood. Seriously, all of them. I was born in 1988, so I saw all of them played a role in my childhood.
You were a year before Mermaid. Mermaid was 89, I believe.
Oh, yeah. And I got to say this, still, the Disney Renaissance, what an incredible era of films.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so we got to start winding down our conversation. So who are your dream guests, Alan?
I would love Tom Pelfrey and Matt Bomer, who I worked with. They're both talented men doing great work. My dream guest was Jacqueline Smith, and I got her.
That's amazing.
Another dream guest that I was trying, but unfortunately, she passed. But Olivia Newton-John would have been a big dream guest for me.
Oh, absolutely. She would have been a wonderful guest. I was trying to get her as well.
Yeah. Loved Olivia. I would love Tony Danza. I worked with Tony Danza. Would love him. Still have a lot of respect for him. My dad was sick when we were working together, and I bumped into him a year or two later, and he remembered and he asked how my father was, and I'll never forget that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I really hope some of these people come onto your show.
Me too. You got to say it out loud.
Absolutely. We got to say it out loud. We have to say it out loud. All right. So what have been some of your favorite social media apps to interact with fans?
Well, I interact with fans on YouTube a lot. They comment on the shows, and I that's one thing from the minute I started, I have responded to every person who has reached out. I also do that on Facebook. I do it on Instagram, Twitter, or X, all of the above. I love it. I love the community. I have great fans who watch The Locker Room. They really support what I do. And they watch the other things that I do, because I do shows that are socially relevant conversations, things that matter to me, being the child of 2 Holocaust survivors, being a gay Jewish man in this world. I'm doing my first sort of political conversation on Thursday, because I do feel I need to speak up because of my parents and use my voice where they no longer can. So I like to interact with the Locker Room community quite a bit.
Absolutely, and do incredible work. You've done a lot of incredible work. And this brings me to my last question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Where can my audience find The Locker Room and find you on social media?
Well, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, it is at The Locker Room, all one word. And remember, it is Locker, L-O-C-H, not C-K. You don't want to do the C-K. You want to do L-O-C-H-E-R, The Locker Room, on all 3. And on X, it's Alan Glenn 66.
Awesome. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast, visit our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, Jacobelyachar. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, Jacobelyachar. And guys, want to find out more visit more of my podcasts or find out what's going on with the latest edition of The Masked Singer? Well, head over to jakes.shake.com. Once again, jakes.shake.com. Alan, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. You have an open invitation anytime, and continue to do the incredible work.
I will do that. Thank you so much, Jacob, for having me today. It's been a lot of fun.
It has been. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.